So he is known for doing the voice of many of your favorite animated characters, but there is one voice that he's known unlike many else. There was one voice that he's known unlike any other, and that is the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Now it's back for the 7th and final season on Disney Plus, and I have him here joining me on the line. It's James Arnold Taylor. James, thanks for joining me, buddy.
Well, thanks for having me, my friend. I should say hello there, shouldn't I?
Absolutely. Hello there as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, the thing about what I love about Star Wars: The Clone Wars is it's not only been able to expand the lore, but it's been on for now 7 seasons, and we've had a lot of
Yeah.
the expanse in the universe. You've actually been able to explore through this great show a lot of characters that weren't explored during the prequels and during some of the other Star Wars movies. So it's been quite the journey. And James, do you remember what it was like on your first day when you came into a call? What was your first day like on Star Wars: The Clone Wars, coming in to do the voice for the first
Yeah.
time?
It's funny. I do actually remember this. I was just talking in another interview saying how I kind of have this recorder in my head, and I just remember these sessions. I remember so much of what I've done in my career, and I've recorded hundreds and hundreds of shows. And I remember it like it was yesterday, the first episode we did of this. And we had done, so there was the micro series of the Clone Wars that I had done years before that. So I've been voicing Obi-Wan for 18 years now, which is amazing. But Clone Wars, the series, the animated series that we're all used to, that's coming back here, the first time I stepped in the studio to do it was with this amazing cast of people. And we all were so excited to be doing something of this scale. And we didn't know at the time that the things we were going to do, those first 4 episodes we were going to track there, would end up being loved by George Lucas so much so that he would say, let's turn those into a movie and then have that be an introduction to the TV show. So we thought it was all just going to be the television show. So Clone Wars, the film, which again, I know a lot of fans, they go, I still love the Clone Wars movie, even though it's not what Clone Wars became, which was so much bigger and better. And it's beloved for that. But that was really those were our first episodes, were what became the film. So I remember it like it was yesterday.
Absolutely. And the best thing, like I say, about Star Wars: The Clone Wars is you've really been able to expand the lore from what was originally in those original prequel movies, particularly like expanding the character of like Obi-Wan Kenobi. You've even, you've had Duchess Satine and him having that love interest there, which wasn't even
Yeah.
explored in any of the films as well.
No, it wasn't. And I remember very, very much so when Dave Filoni, our director, he and George Lucas would have these conversations daily about Star Wars and about all of this. And George brings that up to Dave and says, "Oh, well, Obi-Wan's going to have this, this love interest and this character." And it was just like when he said, "Oh, Darth Maul's coming back," and it's like, what? All these wonderful surprises. And I've been saying that as well. It's really the best thing about Clone Wars is it's always been this chance for us to go deeper into these characters than a film could, because the films are 90 minutes or 2 hours, and they have to be action, action, action. Here's a story. Here's something that's happening. But the show was able to kind of break off from that from time to time and let us see these characters and how they live and breathe in a day-to-day environment, which is really important and is great fun as an actor, but it's also great fun as a Star Wars fan, because we got to see Anakin's quarters there at the Jedi Temple, and and all these things, and Obi-Wan and him kind of just living day to day. And so that stuff is important to Star Wars fans, and I think that that's what was the greatest honor for all of us as a cast to be able to be a part of.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned, of course, the Darth Maul, and really that's another thing that I love is he's been able to be a character that's been further explored in the Clone Wars as well. And I actually got the chance to interview Sam Witwer, who does the voice
Yeah.
of Darth Maul. He actually came down here to Melbourne last year for Oz
Uh-huh.
Comic Con, so you can actually find that on my
Yeah.
YouTube channel as well, James. And he
Oh,
was
that's
such a
great.
he was such a nice guy, and to be able to chat to him all about Darth Maul, and he loves this character. And I remember also being back in high school, and I said this to him about playing the Force Unleashed games. You guys have been able to have this great career in the Star Wars universe, but
Yeah.
what's that been like working alongside like people like Witwer, people like Ashley Eccleston who does Ahsoka Tano? There's been some really rich characters. What's it been able to be like working alongside the rest of your other voiceover talent and actors, I suppose?
Well, I think it's the greatest part of being in this wonderful family that we've created, and we really have become a family. Sam, I just saw Sam earlier this week, no, last week. Yeah, just last week we were in a studio together and working on some stuff. And I mean, I know he's Darth Maul. He's a terrible person there, but he's a lovely person in person. And he has just a wonderful knowledge of Star Wars. He's very specific about he knows his stuff, and he's also a wonderful actor. He's a great performer. He's a great character actor, and he's really passionate about what he does. And so it comes through. And I think it's part of the reason that the character has become what it's become now. Here we kind of, the thing I love about it with Clone Wars and Darth Maul is when I first saw The Phantom Menace, I thought, well, this is a fantastic character, this character, Darth Maul. He's clearly going to be the bad guy throughout all three of the upcoming movies. And then by the end of Phantom Menace, you go, oh, I guess that's not going to
Not
happen.
the case.
And so we get to bring him back. But working with Sam on a regular basis, working with Matt Lanter, Catherine Tabor, Ashley Eckstein, we got D. Bradley Baker, Tom Kane, T.C. Carson, Jim Cummings, Corey Burton, an amazing cast of people that just love Star Wars. The biggest thing is they're all fans of Star Wars. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. And then we all get together and play. Daniel Logan, who was, of course, in the films and then on the show as Boba Fett, and really important stuff that we got to do in the whole storyline of Star Wars that still is part of the canon today. And I think that that's really the best part of it.
Yeah, and you talk about working with such great people on Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and one of those guys, and we talk about the fact that I think the future of Star Wars is television, and one of those guys who created Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and now who's also gone on to direct episodes of The Mandalorian, is Dave Filoni. Now, I feel like this series wouldn't be what it is without someone like we talk about like the Marvel movies and having someone like Kevin Feige who lays this all out. It's like I always refer to like kind of when you build a house, you can't really build a house without getting the builders, without laying the foundations first. And I think that having someone who knows Star Wars so well and having someone like the Kevin Feige in Marvel, but that's what kind of Dave Filoni I feel like is to Star Wars. So what has it been like working with him alongside this journey, this now 7-season journey of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and even like you say before that, what's it been like working with someone like Filoni?
Oh, well, Dave is just an expert in Star Wars, but he's also really an expert in storytelling and directing. And I was saying this in a interview earlier today too, is that I think it's such a wonderful thing that he started in animation, because you're going to see what he's able to do in live action as he's done with The Mandalorian. But to have somebody start in this world that is all drawn, that is all illustrated, that is all comes from our minds, and then moving into live action, he's able to take it farther than I think people that don't start that way could. And he's also just a wonderful guy. He's a fun guy. He's got a great sense of humor. He loves giving us all a bad time. Always loves giving me a bad time, as Obi-Wan, and saying like, Obi-Wan could have avoided all this if he had just finished the job on Mustafar and stuff. Like he'll give me a bad time about things. And then he would always love seeing Matt Lanter and I sitting there talking when we're not recording and stuff, because we really are like brothers. We really are. And I love Matt. He's just a fantastic human being. And Dave would be like, there's my Obi-Wan and Anakin. He just loves seeing the camaraderie there. And he would come in and we would do, no matter what session it was, he'd come in and he'd just tell everybody, here's what we're doing today. Here's where we're going today. Here's the adventure we're on today. Here's what it means in the storyline. Here's what George and I discussed earlier that is making it this now. And he also is the last remnant of George Lucas's Star Wars in that. And I think that's incredibly important to the world of Star Wars, to the canon, and that he was with George on a daily basis making Clone Wars. George, obviously, his fingerprints were all over Clone Wars and the storylines were his, but Dave was able to kind of work with him in a way that I don't think anybody else ever worked with him. He was able to, first off, he would say to George, no, that's not going to work because of this or that or the other. And George would say, well, that won't work because of this. And they worked off of each other. But at the same time, George Lucas was this master to Dave Filoni's Padawan, and now the mantle has been handed over in that regard, and he's done a fantastic job, and I am excited to see where his career takes him throughout his life. It'll just be fun to watch all of it and all of the wonderful things he brings to the world, all the very entertaining things he does.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just having someone like that who has that vision, who can actually lay it out and say, and he was the guy who also brought in and created this amazing character, which is known as Ahsoka Tano. Like we're saying, Ashley Eckstein before, who does the voice of that great character.
Yep.
And I think there's, it's great that we've, had so many great Jedis in the universe, but also to introduce a great female character in Clone Wars that, like I say, it's another thing that wasn't explored in the movies. And I think having Ahsoka there and all through these seasons, and even she's popped up in episodes of Star Wars Rebels as well, I think that Ahsoka
Sure.
has become a pretty important character in your show as well.
Oh, absolutely. She was always my favorite character, Ahsoka was, because I feel as though Ahsoka was all of us. She's really the viewer. She's all of us that want to do the right things, want to obey the Jedi code, but also see problems in it and will question it. And and so she's become a very important character. But I think also before all of this talk of female heroes, Ahsoka was there. She was there, and Ashley was there. Ashley created her universe, this clothing line for Star Wars fans that were females that really wanted, clothing that fit them and worked for them and that showed their fan love. And so Ashley and Ahsoka and Ashley, they are one together. And I think it's really a wonderful thing to see what has come of all of that. And I think it's exciting for the fans because there's going to be a lot of Ahsoka in these 12 episodes that tells stories, new stories, and we did see her in Rebels, so we kind of go back in time a little now for these Clone Wars episodes, but it's still compelling and exciting, and I know everybody is going to love it because, again, a really important character in the world of Star Wars now that exactly as you said, Darcy. I mean, we did not know this was going to happen, and here it is, and so it's wonderful.
It's been such a wonderful journey, and like I said, from starting from the Clone Wars movie and even the micro series, I remember watching the micro series as well, and it's been
Yeah,
amazing what this series has been able to become, been able to explore so much great characters, get way deeper into the lore of Star Wars. Which the best thing is you and me both are Star Wars fans, and I feel like it's just been
sure.
great to be able to watch all these characters go along this great journey from where the Star Wars Clone Wars started to now where it is. But before I do, I guess, let you go, James, has there been like a favorite,
Uh-huh.
maybe a scene from the Clone Wars show? Has there been maybe a behind the scenes moment? Has there been a favorite moment that you've had from this journey? And no doubt, because you've done a lot of voices on a lot of other Star Wars properties as
Sure.
well. I always sometimes find myself sitting back in the credits and going, I wonder if James has done a voice for this particular movie. So, which is great.
Yeah.
Like, I stay back in the credits anyway because it's great to just hear that beautiful Star Wars score. And it's one of those
Yeah.
movies that's so rich in its music. But yeah, has there been one moment or a couple of moments that you've had along the journey through Clone Wars that you've really loved, or something you've really cherished, whether it's been an on-scene moment or behind-the-scenes moment? Has there been anything like that?
Oh, there's so many of those moments that it's hard to whittle it down. But I've been so fortunate, so blessed to be able to be not just the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but also Jedi Master Plo Koon, and then
Hmm.
good great bad guys in there, O.C. Sobek, Reiko Hardeen, just all these wonderful characters throughout these episodes. But then it afforded me the ability to host Star Wars Celebration for 2 years, hosted this event at Disney World every year called Star Wars Weekends that I got to host for 5 years, and which allowed me the ability to meet and get to know and befriend so many people in the world of Star Wars, from Frank Oz to Carrie Fisher to Ray Park, Billy D. Williams. Of course, Mark Hamill and I had been friends before that, long before that as well, because of his voiceover work. But Warwick Davis, Anthony Daniels. There's just so many wonderful people. Peter Mayhew, of course, was just one of our family's dearest friends, and his family is still so dear to us. And so we've just been so fortunate. I have been so fortunate as an actor to work in Star Wars because it has become such a huge part of my life. And then to work with these amazing actors on the show, as I named earlier. I mean, they're all my family now. I'm on the phone or texting with Catherine Tabor or Matt Lanter on a regular basis. We're all always talking to each other, and because we really are family. I mean, it's not just something we say. It truly is, and it's because of Star Wars. So, yeah, just so many wonderful moments. I mean, I have wonderful fond moments of being in the studio, and D. Bradley Baker and I. D is of course the voice of all the clones, every single clone. By the way, he deserves an Emmy for this season of Clone Wars because his work in this, it's always been wonderful, but in this is particularly with the Bad Batch episodes and such, he is a phenomenal actor. And I don't even want to say voice actor. He's just a phenomenal actor, because people tend to think of voice acting as just kind of standing in a room and doing some voices. And it's not. It's putting your life into it. And Dee does an amazing job, because you got to remember, he is the voice of every single clone, and yet he makes every single clone have its own personality, its own life, and its own characteristics. And that is not an easy thing to do as an actor at all. And he does it with ease, and he deserves an Emmy. He deserves Annie Awards. He deserves every possible award you could give him for this season of Clone Wars, and I hope he gets it. But Dee and I would love making Ashley laugh. And we would do like these surfer dudes, like in between takes, and be like, you're like Ahsoka Tano, you're like awesome at the lightsaber. And he'd be like, And we just did like Beavis and Butthead kind of voices. And then she'd break up in the middle of a take, and she wouldn't be able to, get through a take because we were giving her a bad time. Or, we just all had a wonderful time together, giving each other a bad time, watching things like, watching Sam Witwer correct Dave Filoni on a Star Wars moment when he first appeared in the Mortis episodes, and he corrected him about Shmi knowing Padme, and it was great. There's these wonderful things that we've all been able to have part of, but also, again, like I say, getting to have my time with Carrie Fisher on stage many times and becoming friends with her, and she was just a lovely,
what was that like
human being.
to meet Carrie, James?
Well, we had a couple of, I think, some of the greatest, just funnest interviews. If you can catch them on YouTube, they're still there. The first time I interviewed her, we ended it where she gave me a spanking on stage in front of 3,000 people, and then the last time I interviewed her in front of 5,500 people in this huge stadium, she tackled me, and we did like this fake makeout thing and rolling around on the ground, and her dog Gary was on the stage licking the top of my head, and she was just life. Carrie was life at its fullest. She just would listen to every question that any fan had or any interviewer had, and she would give it her best answer. And she would always have a smart, funny answer. And she enjoyed people. And I think she really appreciated what this all meant. And she wasn't ever tired of it. She was never tired of talking about Star Wars. And that would go the same with Mark Hamill, who is just one of the most talented people. I'm so glad to see that he's finally getting kind of that credit he deserves as arguably the greatest movie hero ever.
Absolutely.
So, and Frank Oz has become a dear friend, and he's just a wonderful human being, and very dry sense of humor, hysterical. And, he's one of my childhood heroes. So I've just been very fortunate to be an actor in Star Wars.
Absolutely, and I feel like Mark Hamill kind of broke his promise. In Return of the Jedi, he throws his lightsaber away and he says to the Emperor, "I'll never turn to the dark side." But in fact, Mark Hamill did. Luke Skywalker did, because he became the Joker. So I always love to joke about that.
I love that. Yeah. And the greatest story about that for me, we were sitting in our agent's lobby. This sounds a very Hollywood story, but we were talking one day, and we were talking about the Joker, and he said, I had to convince my family it was me because they didn't think it was me, and he was doing the voice, for his family on the phone. No, it's me, honestly, because he's such a chameleon, and people always think of him. And he and I have had kind of parallel careers in that. And one of the greatest compliments I've ever got is he said to me once, he goes, "You remind me of a young me." And I was like, wow, that's if I could ever live up to that, that'd be wonderful. But because we both have quite a large vocal range and the ability to be that, even though most of our careers we've been pegged as kind of the young hero doing a, hey everybody kind of young voice, and then have the ability to do something different. I can be Fred Flintstone or, whatever. And then, of course, he was the Joker. It's just a fantastic character. And he really set the bar. I mean, there's been wonderful portrayals of the Joker on camera and in cartoons, but Mark is the one that I think everybody strives to be like.
Yeah, and I remember because I was playing the Batman Arkham games, right? And
Yeah,
I turned it over, and I grew up also a fan of the animated series, and it wasn't until I was
right.
playing the Arkham games that I turned it over. I'm like, okay, Kevin Conroy, yeah, I know him, and Mark Hamill. I'm like, really? That's Luke Skywalker doing the voice, and I was playing the Arkham games. I'm like, really? That is the voice of Luke Skywalker doing the joke. I couldn't believe it. But then yeah, then now
Right.
I watch behind the scenes videos. I've seen some behind the scenes stuff, and like you say too about the voice acting talent being more than just voiceover. I've seen behind the scenes of Hamill really getting into the character and really,
Yeah,
getting his mannerisms and really, infusing it, really getting into that
right.
type of Joker. So yeah, I feel like he does a great job in that also.
He sure does. Yeah, he's wonderful. So, yeah.
So, James, mate, I will let you go, but thanks for coming on again and having a great chat. It's great to talk all about, what this series is and the fact of how it's been able to unite, someone like me who's such a fan of this universe and someone like you who's been able to work alongside all these great people, like you say, Peter Mayhew, Carrie Fisher, even all the great voice actors that you've been able to
Yeah.
work with, including Whitware and even Filoni as
Yep.
well. It's just been a fantastic journey, I feel like, the Star Wars The Clone Wars has. And I think it's kind of paved the way for what the Star Wars is going to be going in television. We've got the Obi-Wan
Yeah.
series coming, I think soon.
Yeah.
We've
I'm
got
excited about that.
more
Yeah.
exact. So am I. We got more Mandalorian coming, I think, later on in this year. So it's just been able to, I feel like, the Clone Wars pave that way for what Star Wars television is going to become. Particularly now that you've got this great platform such as Disney Plus as well. I feel like it's really been a special show for not only you but also fans across the world as well. So thanks for coming on, mate, and all the best for the
Oh,
seventh
thank
season
you.
of the Clone Wars. And I look forward to watching it and talking to you soon. It's been great. But before you go, can we get as Obi-Wan? Could we get the Force will be with you always?
Well, of course, I wouldn't dream of ending it any other way. Yes, Obi-Wan Kenobi would, of course, say, "The Force will be with you always."
Fantastic, James. Thanks very much, mate. Have a fantastic
Thanks
day.
so
Really
much.
appreciate it,
Yeah,
mate.
you too.